You talked about the confusion when it comes to Roth. Maybe take just a moment here to explain the difference between a contribution and a conversion. Because I am limited if I make too much money to actually just go buy a Roth IRA. But no matter how much money I have, I can always convert that, which is what you're talking about with the convert it to Roth. They're different. I don't know. They're just different
animals.
Tools. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the contributions, you're limited to an annual amount you can contribute, right? That $7,500. You might have some catch-up provisions if you're over 50. You also have income limitations if you make above certain thresholds, whether you're single or married. There's things that come into play there. But with Roth conversions, there's no limits. You can convert as much as you want in any year. You can do it before you're 59 and a half. You can do it after you're 59 and a half. There are some rules that come along with that go a little deeper than that we have time for here today. But that's something that we'll talk folks through, and we'll show them on the Roth blueprint analysis how those rules would affect them potentially. But the reality of it is again, it's even if the math said, oh, it's a wash whether you did the Roth or didn't do the Roth conversion. I always tell people, listen, but once you've done that, even if it's a complete wash mathematically, now you have control. We're running it based on today's tax rates, right? We've talked about the fact that most people think tax rates are going up in the future. Well, if that's the case, let's get the tax out, pay the tax now, let the air out of the tax balloon, get it into a Roth IRA that will grow forevermore tax-free, and now you have complete control. You own it 100% outright. You don't have Uncle Sam as a partner on that anymore, and you don't have to worry about what tax rates are in the future. That gives people peace of mind knowing, all right, this portion of my retirement is always going to be tax-free, and I don't have to worry about what am I going to net if taxes go up.
Now, we all know in our house that the elements can cause us issues. I mean, if you're where there's a ton of snow, you've all seen, every winter you see the videos of people up on the house trying to figure out how to get some of the snow off their house. It's too heavy and all of that. And then you go to hurricanes and fires and all the things that can happen. The elements affect your home. There's no question about that. I think when you think about the elements affecting your home, there are elements that affect your retirement. Could be inflation, could be taxes that you've talked about. But there are things we have to be aware of when we get into retirement that can affect our retirement.
Well, you raise a good point. Angela and I, we chase our daughter Grace up for basketball, and she's got a few games she plays up in the Upper Peninsula. And it's always in January, February that we're going up there. And you get up there and you get up to Marquette or Sault Ste. Marie or Houghton, Michigan, and there's some serious piles of snow up there when you get into the winter, right? And we were up there, and Ange said, why are their roofs so weird? One side just really steep. And I said, well, they're trying to get it so the snow doesn't collect on those roofs because, they get 4, 5, 6 feet of snow. So you have to plan for those elements, and no different in retirement, right? You talk about what are the elements that can destroy retirement. Well, it's market volatility, it's interest rate risk, it's a sequence of returns risk, it's longevity risk. There are a number of risks that come into play in retirement, health risk, that needing long-term care. So there's a lot of things that you need to plan for. I always say when we look at somebody's plan, hey, we're going to show you. Generally, I like running numbers way more conservative than maybe what they think, right? I'd rather them have more than less than what we plan for. But expect the unexpected. Expect that we're going to have a market drop somewhere in the early part of your retirement, because that's a worst case scenario, having that happen early in retirement. But if it did happen, are we protected in order to keep you online and keep you between those rumble strips going down the highway? And what if you live too long, right? That's number one fear is outliving their money. How can we set you up so that we can assure you that you'll never run out of money? Those are all things. Those are all risks that have to be addressed. And they can destroy, those elements can destroy a retirement in a hurry.
We've talked about it before. The biggest risk, or not the biggest risk, the biggest fear that retirees have is the fear of outliving their money. And to me, that means they're doing it themselves, right? I think we're going to be okay. I hope we're going to be okay. I don't really know, but I think we've done enough to be able to retire. And that's why they're a little nervous, because they're not really sure. They've never sat down with a retirement planning team like Mitch, Lyons Wealth. And you don't have to sit down with Mitch's team. There's other retirement teams. There's not many. Retirement is a niche in the financial world, and it's a very important niche when you're thinking about retiring for 20, 30 plus years. But that is kind of the gist of the whole thing, is that I think people are a little nervous about something that they're not really clear on. And when they walk through your retirement of steel, clarity is one of the most important things they get, I think.
Well, I think so. And a lot of folks say that after going through the process with us, they're like, geez, you know what? This just really brings me comfort in knowing that, regardless of what happens with all the markets, right? We've all seen the markets go up and down. The 2000 crash, the 2008 crash, the 2020 crash, the 2022 was a bad year. Everyone's been through that. You don't want to have that happening and have those kinds of things impact your income in retirement, right? We don't want to say, oh, geez, the market just fell 30%, so I guess I got to live on 30% less of my retirement nest egg. I don't think so. People don't want to live like that. So when we take them through this plan, pull the right levers to get them the income they need, to let them know, hey, we're going to be protected. If the market drops 20%, you're not going to see that in your account. There are things we can do to help alleviate those risks. And I always relate it to, you've been building this castle your whole working life, right? You've built this castle. Well, now the castle's pretty well built as you're approaching and into retirement. Now we need to start worrying about keeping the marauders out, right? And we want to make sure that it's fortified and the moat is deep enough and wide enough to keep those marauders out. And the marauders are market volatility, interest rate risk, longevity risk, sequence of returns risk, all those things we talked about, healthcare. We want to make sure you're protected. We need to expect the unexpected and make sure you're going to be okay.
And you've talked about this before, but we know laws change, tax environments can change, our life can change. Things can happen within our family that adjust our thinking for retirement. The economy changes. Why? How is it so? It is. I would think all of that kind of lends to the importance of maybe doing a review once a year or something, even with your clients that already have a plan. It's not like you just set it and forget it. We got to check to make sure how things are going.
Absolutely. So yeah, I always tell folks, hey, this is a rifle shot. We're starting today at today's situation with today's variables, right? Next year, this plan is going to be different because your stock market account's going to go up or down from where it is now. Your pension, maybe it goes up a little bit, maybe it doesn't, depending on your situation. We have to look at everything and say, okay, here's where we were last year. That's great and fine and dandy, but here's where we are today. And now going forward, how do we keep you between those rumble strips? So continually adjusting. And maybe that means, hey, when the market did really well, maybe we're going to take some out of the market bucket and we're going to dump it into the protected bucket. Or maybe we'll redirect some of that towards the income bucket because maybe at this point you decided you need a little more income. So it always takes a little tweaking. And that's just, that's what we do. That's how we keep people on track for retirement and give them a retirement deal that they can just relax and enjoy it and not have to stress about it.